Well, it's Monday night, and that means it is time for Dylan Talks Tone on YouTubes.com. YouTube.com/Dylan Talks Tone. That's where we are. And I hope everybody came to hang out tonight because I need your help tonight. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. For those of you that are new to our channel, welcome. We have hundreds of videos talking about guitar tech and guitar tone and how to do things and make things work and fix things and install parts and how capacitors work and all kinds of stuff. Whatever it is, you can check it out. We got about 300 videos, and we do this live show that kind of turns into an FAQ thing. Sometimes we have guests and that sort of thing every Monday night at 9 p.m. And Leslie, tell them how they can be a part of our show this evening as well.
So if they're watching live on Facebook, or not Facebook, on YouTube, we are at youtube.com/Dylan Talks Tone. And there is a chat window there, and you can chat with us, interact, ask some questions. Tonight's going to be a good night for one of those kind of nights. And just hang out with us.
That's it. Yeah, so tonight's going to be a little bit open forum because, and I'm just realizing something. We're going to make a change here in just a minute. Because I had a crazy weekend, and I actually flew a red eye this morning to get back home to do this show this evening, and it took a toll. I'm just gonna say that. Before we do that, though, real quick, tonight's show is brought to you in part by MindToybox.com. Are you stressed out? Can you not sleep? MindToybox.com offers holistic frequency-based options without using harsh chemicals. So if you're tired of being tired, MindToybox.com is what you have been looking for. Definitely check it out. It's really, really cool. Very, very cool stuff. I do not need help with sleeping because I was up all night flying and got home at like noon. Tried to sleep some today, but I'm pretty wrecked. Check it out, though. I'll show you what I was doing this weekend. Has nothing to do with guitars, but that's okay. Like I said, tonight's just going to be a little bit of a free-for-all, but I'll show you what I was doing. So I was out in Arizona at the Overland Expo West, and we were looking at cool stuff like this. Leslie, this is the one I was telling you about. It's like my favorite thing. So that is basically an off-road motorhome. So meant to be taken off-road. This is a tent that goes on top of a car. In fact, that's my buddy's white Expedition in the show there. And then just all kinds of Expedition vehicles that could be used for very extreme sorts of travel. Really super fun stuff. This was kind of the main reason why I was there. My friend owns this truck, and my brother did all the fabrication with all the lights and all that kind of stuff. And so it was just really super fun. We had a good time, and I shot a bunch of content. So on our musicandmascara.com channel, you will see that stuff coming up over the next few weeks. So that's where I was, and it was an overnight red eye to get back, and so I'm just wrecked. So tonight is going to be largely Q&A based on questions that you ask. So if you have anything that you've had on your mind, and because we had guests the last few weeks.
Turn that light on.
Yeah. Are we a little dark?
Yeah, you're a dark.
I'm dark?
Yes.
I can probably fix that just by going like this. Like so. There.
I have delayed views.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that should be better. So anyway, it was really fun. But tonight is really going to be a lot of Q&A stuff. I picked some stuff off the because I didn't prepare anything, and the guest that we thought we may have tonight was a little bit iffy because he's moving and stuff, and so he called me I think Friday, and told me that he wasn't going to be able to make it. So one of the things I wrote down, because it's come up quite a bit, is troubleshooting your guitar, because a lot of people don't know how to kind of work their way through troubleshooting whether a pot is bad or a switch is bad or a pickup is bad or the output jack is bad. So we're going to talk about that, kind of the, you know, troubleshooting for dummies, because sometimes, you know, you'll fight and fight and fight and fight, and then you'll realize, oh, I had a bad cable or something, right? So I always do that. I mean, I've done things. I've literally sat here with all kinds of stuff going every which way and realized my guitar wasn't plugged in, like something goofy like that. So first of all, make sure it's plugged in and turned on, right? They always say that. And make sure your cable's good. The very first thing I would check, if you're double, checking if something is good, is working, making sure that it's working, I would check the cable first. Get a second cable.
It's a cable almost every time, isn't it?
It is.
Even with the show or fill in the blank. Yeah.
The majority of the time it's a cable, because we bend them at the end and we step on them and we drive over them with a desk chair or whatever we do, right? It's always a cable. So check cables first. If you need them, let me know, because I make awesome ones, obviously. And then what if we have a pickup that doesn't work? I will tell you that it is probably only about 10% or less of the time a bad pickup. Usually it's a bad switch or a bad pot. So if a volume pot is bad, a lot of times so if a volume pot is bad, that means that if it's cutting out, like let's say your guitar is cutting out and you're playing and it's cutting out and coming back in, and you've double checked your cables, the next thing I would check is your output jack, and just wiggle it and make sure that that doesn't cause you, because a lot of time with a bad output jack, you can actually, it's because they start to move, actually. And so check that. But then the next thing I would say is the volume pot can go bad because you turn it up and down all the time. It's a wear item, right? It's a wear point on your guitar. So you know it's a volume pot when it does it with both or all pickups. If you have cutting out issues and stuff that's stopping and starting and doing things it's not supposed to, and it's only one pickup that's doing it, then 90% of the time it's the switch, right? So if it does it on all the pickups, it's either the output jack or the volume pot. And if it is one pickup or the other consistently, then it's usually the switch, because the switch is typically a friction style switch, which means that there's two pieces of metal that rub together as it works, and over time, and we sweat and moisture, other types of moisture and that sort of stuff, it definitely will cause it to fail. So that was a question that came in over the YouTubes. And then let's see what else we got here. Oh, okay. BC Rich 581. This is a good question. We got a couple good questions here. Considering buying my first SG, and I'm interested in your thoughts on SGs with the mini humbuckers versus the full-size ones found in the more expensive SGs. So the mini humbucker SG is actually pretty rare. They don't make so many of those. Mini humbuckers do sound different, and it's possible that you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's possible that you might be thinking of a P90 because they're smaller. But more commonly, are you going to see? I don't even know if I've seen, because I've been shopping for SGs lately, because I've been thinking about buying one as well. And I really think more commonly, to save money, people think the less expensive SG has a P90 in it, which is a big single coil. That's an incredible sounding guitar. I could go one way or the other. I'm not a mini humbucker fan. I'm not. I just don't like them. I don't like how they sound. At least in an SG, because to me an SG is supposed to sound like AC/DC, and mini humbuckers don't sound like AC/DC. So that's the long and the short of it for me. And then maybe a link to a site that outlines the basics of how to use a voltage meter. I should do a video on this. I have never even thought about this before. I've never even thought about making a video.
That means you overthink.
Yeah. Yep.
Keep it simple.
About how to test part, like,
Well, especially since that's a key piece of information sometimes when you're troubleshooting with somebody.
well, yeah, because the first thing you say is, well, go grab your meter and
Right.
check and see if blah,
Right.
blah, blah. But if they don't know how to do that even,
Then they're giving you inaccurate information.
they are. So maybe, you know what? And what we'll do is we'll get one. I have one out in the shop that you can get off of Amazon that's like, I think $20 or something. It's not really expensive, but it has all the basic functions that you need to check and see if you have a bad switch or a bad cable or a bad, and we'll do some videos. In fact, those videos, I promise that one will come out Friday. I have to actually shoot a video for this coming Friday. And
Really?
Yep, because I got a little behind. And so this Friday and next Friday, we'll make those videos about using meters to troubleshoot stuff.
Cool. And he did confirm it's not a P90. There are two SGs on Sam Ash. One is $599 with minis and another at $10.99 with minis also.
Okay, those are two different guitars. Those are two different models of guitars, and not just the pickups are different. Because I know what you're talking about now that you say that. If you want real humbuckers, you can get, I think it's a faded or something, an SG faded model maybe, for right about $800 or so. There is no real price difference between a mini humbucker and a regular humbucker. They cost the same. So there's other things that you're giving up with that guitar, and it might be like block inlays or trapezoid inlays versus dot inlays and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a matter of sound and less a matter of cost, because you can get a humbucker SG for less than $1,000. I was just looking the other day on I want to say I was on Zounds maybe, looking at them myself, because I didn't want to spend $1,000 either, because I was just going to use it for videos and stuff. So I was going to buy I think it was the $800 one. I think it was called the Faded, and the biggest thing about it was it had dot inlays, and it had like the paint wasn't shiny. It was just like a matte finish, but it was still a real SG, and they play good. They're really nice, actually. Let's see. Michael asks, is it the pot or the pickups that can give the most gain to clean taper? As I mess with the volume and tones, I get more or less dirty or clean tones. Okay. You're right. I am going to say it's the entire system, but let's break this down per your question.
I did confirm that he wanted to actually ask you, though, and not the audience. And he was like, no, but as I was typing it, I figured what his answer was going to be.
No, okay, so, and I'm glad he said that. Like, call me out on that. Like, no, be more specific, right? Like, if you want me to be more specific and we can talk about that, that's great. Because this is cool. This is a really good question. Because they all do kind of work together, but let's talk about what each component does in that system, and then how you can change that for different things. So the pickups are going to, how hot or cold, high output or low output the pickups are. Remember that they produce a voltage. Okay. So this is the strength of the magnet and the amount of winds on the pickup, or the DC resistance, determine how much voltage they make. So when you strike a string, one pickup might make 300 millivolts. The other pickup might make 250 millivolts. So what happens is that voltage goes into the guitar, and the volume pot acts as a voltage divider and sends some of that voltage to ground and some of that voltage to the amp. And when you turn the knob, it adjusts that proportion. Okay, more or less. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but just for the sake of our conversation, it says I'm going to send some to ground, but I'm going to let some of it go to the amp. And as I turn it down, more of it goes to ground and less of it goes to the amp. Okay, so when you're saying, as I mess with the volume and tones, I get more or less dirty to clean tones. Remember that the pickup is kind of like a microphone. If I were to scream into this microphone right now, it would distort the little amps in the mixing board, and it would sound all distorted and fuzzy. Your guitar is doing exactly the same thing, right? It is basically kind of like a microphone, and instead of using air, it's using a vibrating string, and it is creating a voltage, and when it gets too much for the amp to take, it gets dirty. So that means that a lower output, let's just say if I had a microphone with a less efficient mechanism right here, I could scream into it and it would sound really fuzzy and broken up. If I had a really efficient one, I could scream into it and it would still stay clean. Your guitar pickups are the same way. Exactly the same way. So the more output a pickup has, okay, the less clean it's going to be because it's creating so much voltage going to the amp. So that means, and then you can adjust that proportion with your volume knob. Somebody commented today on my Facebook page and they were like, no matter what you do, a volume pot just makes a guitar sound worse. Just leave everything on 10 all the time. But this is why you don't leave your knobs on 10 all the time, because you can set those proportions. You can say, well, I'm going to create a lot of voltage and a big sound with this pickup, but I don't want it to hit my amp too hard, so I'm going to use the volume knob to control that instead of relying on other things like pedals and boosts and all that sort of stuff. So you can have a lot of dynamics. Excuse me. And then when they talk about taper, pot taper, because I think he kind of alluded to that in here.
Gain to clean taper.
Yeah. So taper, all that is if a linear taper pot basically is when the knob is all the way up, it's 100%. When it's at 5, it's 50%. And when it's 0, it's 0%. Okay, so that's like a linear taper, so like a 45-degree angle. An audio taper pot has like a curve in it. So when the volume is all the way on 10, it's on 10. When it's on 7, it's at like 90%. When it's at 5, then it changes. It scoops down in a different shape, which is my favorite kind because I can shape the sound of my guitar better. That's what I like. So
before you move on, can you actually kind of zoom out on that question a little bit and maybe say what that question even means, like why that would be a question? Like you gave a very detailed answer, but I think some people didn't even understand what the question was. Okay. So maybe more high level.
Sure, because I think what Michael wanted to know, what it seems like what he's asking here is it the pots or the pickups that make the difference in how clean or dirty you are when you adjust your volume knob? I think that's what he was asking. And the answer is they both do, but remember that they interact with each other. So the more pickup you have, the volume is going to act different. The less pickup you have, the volume is going to act different. It has been my experience in most cases that a lower output pickup gives you more variable with your amp. So let's say you could use a really high gain amp with lots of distortion, but a really low output pickup, and you could turn the volume way down and it would still be very clean, and then turn the volume up and then it would get dirtier. That is much more dynamic and adjustable with a lower output pickup than it is with a higher gain output pickup. Because if you start all the way up here already and you turn the amp on, then your adjustability with the volume, all it's going to do is just turn the volume up and down. But if you start down here with the output of your pickup, then you have got this room to move, this headroom to move in. Okay, so yeah, that's cool. We have a video. There's actually a series of videos on the channel somewhere about headroom and gain stages and understanding. And I draw some pictures with a sine wave and talk about what causes distortion and when your pickups are a lot and when your amp is a lot or a little. There's a couple videos on that.
Yeah, he said he is ultimately looking for maximum control on the guitar with just pickups, tone, and volume.
So to me, if it's a single coil pickup, that's a low output single coil pickup like our classic 5 Strat pickups or like our flat 6 Tele pickups. If it's a humbucker, DAF all the way because it's super low output vintagey thing. And then audio taper pots. Yep. Absolutely. No, I'm with you because that's my favorite way to do it too. And then I set the amp one way and maybe a boost pedal, right? But not real complicated. And then just control everything right here with my hand. I get it. I'm the same way too. Let's see. Jeff says, can you discuss coil height in single coil Strat type pickups? We have a video on this. It is in the guitar setup playlist. There is a how to set up your guitar playlist on our channel. We talk about how to adjust pickups. You're talking about in Strats. Typically what I like to do, just to kind of give you a little, oh, look at that. Just a quick is I put my thumb on the last fret and I raise the neck pickup all the way up until it's about 150 thousandths or so, which is that's the America measurement. So 2 dimes in a nickel. If you're overseas and you use metric, that would be about 3 millimeters, something like that. And then what I do, that's going to make the neck pickup pretty loud. And then what I do is I adjust the bridge pickup up and down to equalize the level of output that I like. And that's a variable thing, and you can make it however you want. Maybe you want the bridge to be a little louder, you want the neck to be a little quieter, or vice versa. I actually like my neck to be a little bit louder than my bridge. I know that's weird, but I do. And just play around with that a little bit. And then the middle, on a Strat, I use the notch positions 2 and 4, and I just adjust the middle until I get that nice tubular surfy kind of sound that a Strat gets. Honestly, there's no real measurement on it. Literally, it's just how it sounds.
He said he means the actual dimensions of the coil, not the height of the pickup.
Oh.
Length of magnets, etc.
That's variable depending on who you ask. I use 0.650 magnets, and I use 0.187 diameter. Some people use 0.195, and some people will stagger them, and I don't believe that staggering is necessary with string technology is the way it is, and the fretboard radiuses that we use these days, and on our custom builds especially, we typically use 10 to 12 inch fretboard radiuses, so staggering them is not, there's no point in it really. Yeah. And coil height, man, I can't remember what it's supposed to be. 650 magnet minus, I don't remember. To tell you the truth, I don't remember. I did all that testing, and I have all my stuff in a notebook somewhere. And now that I use what I use, it's literally, I can just bang them out without thinking about it. So I cannot, to tell you the truth, I do not remember what they are. Iggy Tommy. Regular listener, Iggy Tommy. He actually watches a lot of our videos too. Question: if I want to wear 2 Strat style single coil pickups loaded adjacent to one another, located adjacent to one another into a humbucker, is there a problem issue with doing that? Oops, no, there's not. I'll give you a couple of little things here. If they are wound, reverse polarity, you just got to make sure that the polarity is right. So stick them together. I mean, stick them close to each other. Put them together. And then what you have to do is if they are reverse wound, reverse polarity, meaning that one is north up and one is south up with the magnet and winding, then you can wire the finishes of both of those together and it will work as a humbucker. Otherwise, you'll have to mess around with it to make sure the phasing is correct, is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You'll play it one way and you'll be like, oh, that sounds thin, like it's 500 feet away from here. And you'll be like, oh, crap. And then what you'll do is you'll flip the wires on one of them and then it'll work right. And then it'll be really buzzy and noisy and you'll be like, well, that's in series, but it's not hum canceling. So you just have to make sure your phasing is correct. If you wanted to do that, what I would definitely recommend doing, like if somebody called me and said, hey, I'm going to put two of them together, like sort of like a humbucker, I would make them as a set so that the phasing was correct and give you a wiring diagram so that it was proper. If you're just going to pick some out of the drawer, you know, maybe you've just got a bunch in a drawer somewhere, you're going to have a harder time. You'll just have to go through and fix all that phasing. You'll have to mess around with it, you know, wire it a couple of times until you get it right. If you don't know what the phasing of those pickups is until you get it right. So I would do it custom, but yeah, that's pretty cool. No, that's really cool. There's a guy, I can't remember what his name is, but he does lipstick pickups like that. He puts, and I should do it too, he puts lipstick pickups, two of them on a humbucker base, and he makes them into a humbucker. And they're really, really cool. So, yeah, it's super fun. You know, it's super fun stuff. Thanks for all these questions. This is awesome. It's 9:30 already. And
y'all are keeping him awake.
I'm struggling, y'all. I'm really struggling. Like before the show, when we were sitting here just kind of getting ready, I was like, I could just fall out right now. I love this desk chair. I got this new desk chair a few months ago. And I'm just like, oh, man.
Let's tell them what we were really doing right before the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, I could totally show them what we were doing before the show.
So the news.
Yes.
Was on the news. So, you know, I don't know if they do it in your area. The local news people are trying to integrate, you know, and use social media more. So when they're even on the scene where they're going to do a story, if there's a story happening already, a lot of them go live. Like they have business personality pages also, like on Facebook, and then they go live if they want to cover something. So we were watching Facebook Live because they were diverting traffic is how it started. But why they were diverting traffic was the best part.
Yes. So what you're seeing right here is our neighbor is the guy with the sheriff's vest on, and there is a bunch of people and they are arresting an alligator. And so this alligator was literally in the middle of the road. In fact, when we were talking about it earlier, I think we figured out that the time of the day and stuff that it was, because it was right by the airport. Chances are we actually probably drove by this thing and didn't see it because we were on the other side of the road. But anyway, over 6 feet. It was big, really big alligator. And so there was a Facebook Live, and our neighbor was involved with it. And obviously he was on top of it. And so, yeah, so that was, and we got distracted and we were like, oh, crap, I think we better get in here and get ready for this show because we were watching these guys wrestle this alligator. It was pretty awesome. Follow-up question. If one isn't RWRP, will that mean that the phasing will be out, or do I just reverse the wires on one pickup? That is theoretically correct. Here's the thing. For it to work, the magnetic polarity and the electrical polarity have to be completely opposite. Okay? So, that means, and that's what you don't know. So, let's say, now for instance, I'll give you an example. My strap pickups on the bridge and on the neck, I wind them counterclockwise. Okay? So that means that the start wire is the ground and the finish wire is the hot. And the magnets are facing south up. Okay? Now the middle pickup is wound the same direction, but the wires are switched to where the white wire goes on the ground, or on the start wire, and the black wire goes on the finish wire, and the magnets are north up. So it's not only wired backwards, but the magnet is also polarized backwards, okay, from the other pickup, and that's what makes it hum canceling. So that's why I say you'll just have to play with it. It might not just, if you just switch the wires, it's possible that it will work. Now here's what I'll tell you. If you got those pickups out of, I don't know, maybe some like less expensive Squier Strat, and you have a whole bunch of them in a drawer somewhere, chances are those pickups are not reverse wound, reverse polarity, and you could just stick them together and they will work. But it's just a matter of experimenting. And it's funny, there is no science to it. And figuring it out. Like if you have a bunch of random pickups that have been built different ways and by different people, you know, different companies and stuff, there's no way of figuring it out. You just, unless you have the wiring diagrams for everything, and we never do. So it's literally, you just hook it up and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you switch it around till it does. I mean, that's what I do. We have a video actually on our websites, on our YouTube channel. I think it's in the quick tips section, because it's only 1.5 minutes long, that shows you how you can check which way a pickup is wound and which wires go where, with, like, you use a socket and you rub it across it and you hook it up to a meter and you can tell which way it is. So there's a video that's really cool. That's a really cool video. Speaking of how to use a meter to do something cool, that's a really neat video. And the long and the short of it is, since we've got some time tonight, is basically what you do is you hook up a meter to it, okay? And this is like if you get a random humbucker. Let's say you get a random humbucker and you're trying to figure out which wires go where. You've got 4 wires, but you don't know what brand the humbucker is, and you're not sure which one goes to which coil and how to hook it up, right? So you've got these 4 wires, and 2 go to a coil and the other 2 go to a coil, but you're not even really sure which ones. So you grab two wires, any 2, doesn't matter, and you take a socket, like a deep well socket, and you run it back and forth over one of the coils while those 2 wires are hooked up to a multimeter. And remember how we said that it will produce a voltage? You'll go like this across those magnets, just like your strings would, only it's a lot stronger because it's like a big socket, right? And you'll make some voltage if you've got 2 wires of the same coil. If you don't, unhook one, grab another one. Oh, okay, now I'm making some voltage, okay? And then you'll see it be negative voltage or positive voltage. And then that's which way your phase is. It's really cool. It's a really neat thing. And there's a video we do to explain that. So I think you'll dig that one. Let's see. Jeff says, can you do a video on how to charge Alnico magnets? Sure. You just take, I'll just tell you how to do it right now. It's not that hard. I should do a video on it and make like a project list though, like with all the parts.
Yeah, but tell them now. You already said you would tell them.
Yeah, no, I will. It's basically the simple poor man's way to do it, which to me is the easiest, is a little bench vise and 2 neodymium magnets, or however you say that. One that's north and one that's south. You stick them on the jaws of the vise. And you run that vise in until the pickup barely fits in there with a little gap on both sides, and you just run the pickup back and forth between those 2 magnets. And you do it. a undetermined, I'm not going to tell you how many times because that's one of my secrets. But that's how you magnetize the magnet. Now, here's the trick and the problem with it. The trick and the problem is consistency for every pickup. And getting the Gauss, which is the strength of the magnet, correct for each. So if I make 20 pickups, making sure that they're all gouged exactly the same. So if you buy a set of pickups from me, they work the same every time. That is the challenge, and that is the problem with doing that way. There are more fancy ways to do it. They have machines that do it. There are machines, you know. But if you want to just get started, I guess we need to make a list because I'll put that in the video too. This is great also, by the way, because you're giving me some great ideas on video stuff. Oh, let's see. Iggy Tommy again. Thanks. I have one strap pickup that is RWRP, reverse wound, reverse polarity is what he's talking about. But I have two lipstick pickups that are both the same magnetic field and same polarity. And I want to do some unusual dual coil pickup combos. That sounds really fun, man. Yeah, I dig that a lot. That sounds really fun. If they're the same polarity and the same wiring, then you would, in order for it to be a humbucker, you'd have to flip over one of the, take it apart and flip over one of the magnets. Just so you know. But other than that, so it won't be hum canceling. So in this case, what I would do is you'd have to figure out which one is the finish wire and which one is the start wire. Again, this is just playing around and trying. But let's say there's a black wire and a white wire on both of those lipsticks. I would hook up the two black wires together to each other. And then I would hook up one white one to ground and one white one to the volume pot. If it sounds terrible and it's all super noisy and weird, then hook up the two white ones to each other and use the black ones, one on the volume pot, one on the ground. And that'll be the closest thing you can get to a humbucker. Is there a max charge that each pickup can contain? Max could be a good starting point. Okay, so this is a great question. And this doesn't come up very often, actually. So that's what the numbers are. Alnico 2, Alnico 3, Alnico 4, Alnico 5. That's what the numbers are. That is saying that if you fully charge an Alnico 3, it doesn't have as big of a magnetic field as if you fully charge an Alnico 5. But here's the thing. Until you measure all that and understand what that is, and this is why, okay, this is why magnet quality matters. This is why where you get your magnets from matters. This is why cheap pickups sound like cheap pickups and good pickups don't. Is because the consistency in how they take a magnetic charge and the consistency in how the guy does it. Because the max for this batch of Alnico 5 pickups magnets might not be the same as the other. And so if you can put a value on that and understand for quality control, then it's better over a bigger batch. But the short answer is absolutely. If you can max, but you still have to understand how many passes that is and how slow that is, and right? Like, so when we said we're going to take this magnet and put it between these two other magnets in a vise and go back and forth, how fast is it going to go? What's the distance between it? And how many times are you going to do it to get to the max? What is the max? You got to figure that out first. Then you can consistently do it. That's what I'm saying. That method is, there's a lot of complications to that because it's stuff you got to figure out kind of by hand. But you're right. Max 3 versus max 5 is two different things. That's why the number's different. But you can undercharge a 5 and make it sound like a 3. So, you know, that's all the variables, and that's where we get into Dylan Talks Tone doesn't talk about that stuff very much. That's where we get into that part where I'm like, that's how I make my pickups. Yep. That's kind of the line right there. But I would not discourage you from trying. I will make a video about this, and I will not discourage you from trying it. I would totally encourage you to do it. I'm just not going to give you all the answers, and what I would say is just try it and get a notebook just like I have and just make notes and discover how the pickups sound if you're trying to make them for yourself, and just take notes and really take note of what you're doing, because that's all everybody really does.
I was going to say there is no right answer.
There isn't, right. There is no right answer. And so if you, because everybody wants to be like, well, what's the perfect Strat pickup? It's 7,250 winds, and it's Alnico 5 pickups, and they're 0.671 tall, 187
then there wouldn't
diameter.
be a variety, and everybody would buy the same thing.
But it doesn't matter because you make them how you like them to sound. My Strat pickups, everybody says, I want my pickups to sound like John Mayer, or I want my pickups to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I have a set that sounds like John Mayer, and I have a set that sounds like Stevie Ray Vaughan, to me, because I liked those two guitar players when I was younger, and that was what I wanted to sound like. I wanted cleans of John Mayer and Dirty Pool from Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I wanted the dirties of Stevie Ray Vaughan. So that's what I did. But I went my way to get that and threw away some sets. And
yeah, Jeff is laughing. He said it is your pickup recipes. He said, I just want to discuss concepts in general, not your specific recipes intentionally.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's the thing. If we do a video about this, I'll show you how to do it at home by yourself for sure. And I'll show you how to do it where it costs you like $20. Like, it's not expensive. So no, I'll totally show you how to do it. And I'm almost positive that you will not get that somewhere else on YouTube, because these guys that make pickups usually are like, kind of,
like it's witchcraft.
Yeah, like some kind of snooty thing. I'm not going to give away how I do that. This is really basic stuff here, people. We're not talking rocket science, right? Like, there isn't even a moving part in a pickup. It's just like they're super simple. So, maybe a pretty short video of the proper shielding. Okay. BC Rich 581. Maybe a pretty short video on the proper shielding of a control cavity, sheets of copper plating to shield versus shielding paint, something along those lines. This is very simple. Shielding your control cavity is dumb. There's no reason to do it. That's very simple. Unless, so we'll talk about this real quick, because we've talked about this a lot on this channel. And so if you're new here, go to, there is a whole playlist on our YouTube channel strictly about shielding, okay? And we do this we do exactly what you say here. I don't use shielding paint because I think it's a little bit of a pain to work with. The reason people like shielding paint is because they like to shield their control cavities. But here's the thing, and you'll see this in our other videos. That's not where the problem is. The problem is around the pickups. So the only time I would recommend shielding a control cavity is when you're looking for real estate to put foil. If you have a pick guard, shield the pick guard and ground the pick guard. It cannot get better than that, okay? Because what you're really looking for, you're not looking for a Faraday cage. I know everybody wants to go down that road with this, but it's totally bogus. You don't care about a Faraday cage. What you care about is square inches of coverage. If you could shield, if you've been with us for a long time, you'll remember we made some guitars with aluminum tops. They were the quietest guitars ever because the whole top was this big satellite dish of shield catching goodness. I mean, it was amazing. So what we're going for here is square inches. So if you do not have a pick guard, for instance, like on a Paul Reed Smith or on an Ibanez RG that is, some kind of curvy top, and you don't have a pick guard, then shield your control cavity simply for the purpose of getting as many square inches of shielding as possible on the guitar. That's what you want. As many square inches of shielding as possible, but a pick guard is the way to go. It is the best way. And if you go watch those videos, and you don't understand that, if you don't understand what I mean by that by the time you're done, let me know, and we'll get more specific. But we spent a lot of work and a lot of time on those videos because this is a big one that people ask all the time. So definitely check it out. Michael says, when someone usually on YouTube says this pickup is voiced in some way, what does he mean by voiced? Well, you know, there's a variable for everything, right? So we were just talking about some of those variables back in the beginning of the show. I think it was who was asking these questions earlier. I think BC. I don't know who was asking this. Oh, you were, Mr. Michael. You were asking this earlier. So, the voice comes from. It's just like a human voice. Pickups are like human voices. The reason I sound different than her is because if we were to speak into a real-time analyzer and look at where our frequencies are, there's going to be a peak on the lower end of my voice, and then it's going to roll off, and it's going to pop up because I have this little weird S-y thing. Hers is going to be real flat on the low end, and then it's going to have a big mid-range, and then it's going to have this little S-y thing at the end, right? That's the voice. If you could put it on a piece of paper on a real-time analyzer, that's the voice. That's where the sound peaks and valleys are. So a guitar pickup has a resonant peak frequency. And what that means is it is the best at making a particular frequency. That's when you hear people talk about the resonant peak of a guitar pickup. They're talking about the frequency that it makes the easiest, the most, and the best. Okay? And there's a bunch of math and a bunch of junk that goes into that. But that's what they're talking about. And so that's what gives it a voice, just like a person. Right? So mine is, I got some down here on the lower bass side, and then mine's not real mid-rangey, and then I've got this little that peaks way over here on the high side. Leslie's doesn't have any low end down here. It's got a real peaky mid-range, then it pops back down, and then it's got the little S-y thing over here. Everybody has a little S-y thing over on the side. So I've got a real bassy voice. She's got a real mid-rangey voice. Same thing with guitar pickups. What affects that? Size of the magnet, diameter of the coil, measurement of the coil, and then the whole guitar circuit actually can affect that. Going back to your, he's going to say everything affects everything. Because the resonant peak of the pickup, the resonant peak of the entire circuit on a passive circuit works together. So the capacitor over here and the value of the pot affects the voltage in the pickup backwards. I don't know if you realize that or not, but it does work together. So that's why a 500 pot guitar sounds different than a 250K pot guitar, because the whole resonant peak of the guitar changes because of the value of the pots, because it's all in one circuit. So when they say we're going to voice these pickups a certain way, all they're doing is they're just moving that resonant peak back and forth. Or is it going to be bassy? Is it going to be mid-rangey? Is it going to be real knifey, edgy, razor bladey? Where is that resonant peak going to be? And also, where's it going to be? How high is it going to be? And how wide is it going to be? Right? So are we going to have a real narrow resonant peak that's just going to be super mid-rangey or super bassy or super high-endy? Or are we going to have one that's real mid-rangey, but it kind of curves over more towards the bass also? Or maybe it curves over more towards the high end. And that's the difference in voices. Just like people. It's literally exactly like people, but we just do it with the size of the magnet and the size of the coil. How high it is, how fat sticking out it is, and the diameter of the wire, and how much wire is on it. That's really it. And beyond that, and some basic design factors like how tall it is, how fat it is, like a Strat versus a P90, is because they're both single coils, but they sound way different. That's because of physical dimensions. But beyond that, literally, it's experimenting. It's literally experimenting. That's it. Voices. These are awesome questions tonight. Fun
10 stuff minutes.
to talk about. 10 minutes left already? Are you kidding me? You guys, thank you so much. I was really worried. I'm not kidding, because ask her, even sitting there and eating dinner, or I don't know what we're doing, watching the news or Jeopardy or something, and I was researching some stuff. I'm like, I got to come up with a couple things to talk about. And my brain was just so fried from traveling today. I actually was supposed to go shoot a video about a Dodge Demon today. And as excited as I was about driving that car and seeing that car, I was just like, I have to put it off. I'm so tired. And so I was really worried that I was going to come in here and just be like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I'm so boring. But you guys killed these questions. This is so fun. That's why we do it like this now.
Well, and maybe just the change up, because we actually haven't had just a show like this in a while. We've had some really good content.
Yep.
And so maybe even, taking it back to just a Q&A night is fun too.
No, I agree. It's great.
It's fun just to hang out sometimes. It's all about the community. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What is everybody else saying over there? Everybody's talking amongst themselves, and
they were just saying if I sounded like you, I would have a beard, and that basically you were saying I was a 500K pot. So we were equating my voice to
no
guitar
she would be
parts or something. I don't really understand.
Okay, so just so we know where we are here.
And Dylan doesn't have a beard, so what does that mean?
No, I don't.
Anyway.
I do need to shave though. It's been a while. Well, when you go to an off-road convention, there's certain things you just don't have to do, like bathe or take a shower. I have really weird, and I won't like get all into my feet on YouTube, but because people have made, I don't want to see your feet. I have these shoes. I wear these Keen shoes. Not endorsed by them. I would like to be. But they gave me some really weird tan lines on my feet. It's kind of funny. I don't know where I was going.
You were gonna say if I was a 500K pot or not.
No, so we're gonna talk. Let's just talk about that real briefly. So if you're wondering what you should be looking, because it's hard to translate from paper to sound, but 1K is mid-range most of the time, and so 80 hertz, like a really huge subwoofer in a car or like in your living room will go down to theoretically 50 hertz, but you can't really hear that. You can kind of more feel that. 80 hertz is more realistic, is really super low bassy. Like that's low. I mean, probably lower than that. 120 is high bass, and then as we go up to 1K, so that's hertz, and then kilohertz, 1 kilohertz is in your mid-range area, and then you go up to, I mean, theoretically like 20K and 25K, but a lot of times when you're mixing music, and people will argue this probably, but a lot of times you'll take that very high one and just cut it all the way off anyway, because the room will screw with that. Like, so there will be extremes, but a guitar is a vocal instrument. A guitar really, I have a friend, well, I'll just tell you, it's John Bollinger. I want to get him on here and talk about that, because his whole concept of because he's a utility player, and what he talks about is everyone having a sonic space within the music and treating the guitar as a voice. And so I learned a lot from that, and that's why when I play, like if I play in a band, I never play any leads over a person singing. I think that's rude, because they're competing for the same space, right? You're supposed to complement that. So when we think about a guitar and when we're trying to design a guitar and what we're going to use it for, it is a voice. And so are we going to use it as a vocal instrument, a soloist instrument, like a vocal soloist instrument? Then we want to have a really good mid-range, because that's going to be up above then the bass player and the drummer, and it's going to be below the strings and all the other high-end stuff and cymbals and stuff. Or are we going to be a rhythm section And are we going to complement the bass player? So are we going to be kind of more over here in the lower side, but still pretty vocal? That's when it gets into what am I going to use the guitar for? What place am I going to have in the music? Where is the sonic space that I'm going to occupy? And then understanding how to build it for that. So I don't really say, when somebody asks me to build a pickup for them, I don't say, who do you want to sound like? I say, where are you going to be? What are you using it for? And what voice do you want to have with your guitar? And so that term voice, a lot of people, when they say voice, they're like, I voiced it to sound like John Mayer. I voiced it to sound like, you know, somebody else, Slash. And all that means is they're trying to copy a sound. But when I say it, I mean, where is your guitar going to sing? Are you going to sing over here by the bass player as a rhythm player, or are you going to sing over here by the vocalist and complement the vocalist? And that's going to determine a lot. So really neat. Those are great questions, man.
Cool.
Let's see.
Basically out. No more questions.
Awesome. Excellent. That's great. It's 9:56.
Mm-hmm.
We took up a whole hour of hanging out and talking. Thank you all so much for doing that with us. It's been really fun. We will make a video. So we're going to make some videos about how to use the meter to check some stuff on a guitar, right? And then we're going to make a video on how to magnetize magnets. I'm going to do that.
And something else, I thought. You're going to have to go back through the comments. I feel like there was 2 or 3 you should be making.
There's 3. I'm going to make 3.
Oh, okay.
But it's, yeah, one of them's going to kind of overlap, but we're going to do a couple different ones with it.
Cool.
No, very awesome. Well, thank y'all. Make sure that you check out our other stuff on Dylan Talks Tone on the YouTubes this week. We're going to have, in addition to our live show, we're doing a new video every Wednesday and every Friday. That's
we will not be here next Monday.
Next Monday is Memorial Day, and we will be off.
Yes.
There still will be video. We're going on vacation, but this works out great, having these questions, because I'm going to go ahead and shoot these videos this week so that they will still come out next week when I'm on vacation. So if you have any questions about those when they come out, I know I'll be on vacation, but feel free to ask, and we will be keeping up. We will be keeping up and checking on everybody if they have questions. So make sure you do that. And until then, y'all have a good one, and we'll see you on the internet.